We're live.
We're
Shane is
live.
now awake.
I've been awake this whole time. I just I don't know where you guys were.
Okay.
I was in the wrong mock.
You were dead asleep on the couch, which means you're completely prepared for a second round Superflex mock, right?
I am super prepared. I'm ready. I was dreaming about this mock while I was passed out on the sofa. Who needs a first round mock? That's no fun.
Yeah, let's see what came to you in your dreams. So just for everybody, we tweeted this out last night, tweeted it out today. We're doing a second round mock, probably going to go for multiple rounds. All about what to do in the first round, Shane. What receiver to draft first and second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth. So for our show, 9 receivers are off the board. So we have Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, Jahan Dotson, Sky Moore, George Pickens, and Christian Watson are gone. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker are gone. Kenny Pickett is gone. So we're starting at the 201. Shane just woke up, so I want to hear him talk. So Shane, how are you doing? And you are officially on the clock.
All right, I'm stoked. I really love this second round. No, wait, that's not true. Wow. So I guess for 201, it's not even close for me. Like there's not even a thought unless it's a tight end premium class. I'm gonna go with Jim Cook. You gotta go with Jim Cook.
James Cook, all right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna be tight end premium, but we could do a whole
premium
show on it's tight end premium. You already know my spiel on tight end premium. If it's not 2 PPR or maybe 175, it doesn't matter in start 1.
All right.
We can make it start 2 tight ends. That means you actually have to evaluate the tight ends, but that might be a little bit over the head of a lot of the listeners. So what do you want to do? 2 tight ends or 1?
We'll do. Let's do 1 tight end. I don't want to alienate the crowd. But yes, I'm going James Cook here. Look, we like running backs in this round, starting in the second round. I think we're going to see quite a few of them go. If I know me and you very well, I think I do. So I expect to see them flying off the board.
Yeah, I think that's probably the clear pick. The early mocks I've seen, or the early drafts I've seen already, I've had like 5 drafts that have already started today, and a couple of them are into the second round. And James Cook is usually going in the first, if not right there on the turn. Probably in a few, he's going ahead of the receivers. You know what I mean? He's usually going before like wide receiver 8 or wide receiver 9. So whatever. I mean, I can't necessarily argue if people are reaching on a running back. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm doing this just simply because I think this is a spot to highlight that I think somebody's going to want to get this player. So I'll just take Rachaad White because I think this is where he's going to end up settling in. Sometimes he's going to go to the late first, really early second. So I'm just going to take him. I don't really want to take him. I know it's probably bad process to take him here, but at the same time, like we've talked about on the live stream on Dynasty Trades in 5 and the DLF show the other night, like we didn't have the quarterbacks in the first round. So we don't really have these guys to push some of the day 2 running backs back a little bit. So I'll just take Rachaad White 202.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like reaching based on this, what we've seen out of this class, to be quite honest with you. Right. What we saw out of the draft. Reaching is when you start looking at these wide receivers that are left and you go, all right, well, I guess since the NFL did it, I'm going to do it too. Oh, man, I really hate the wide receivers drafted in the second round that are left. That said, yeah, I'm going to go with Alec Pierce.
Really? Tell me more, because I would not have taken him probably even in the second. So tell me more.
I don't like any of these wide receivers, not even a little bit. I'm just going with draft capital and situation. I think landing with the Colts is a good situation for him. Obviously, he's good draft capital, as do several of these other wide receivers. And I'm going to shoot upside. When we get back to me in the next couple picks, I'll start getting a little safer, but I'm going to shoot upside here and go with Alec Pierce. Also, his name is fun because it's not Alex, it's just Alec.
Yeah, it sounds much cooler. Yeah, and I'm a little extreme. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him in the second round, but I probably wouldn't have taken him there. There's a couple I would prefer over him, but I'll take John Mechie 204. I think I didn't expect him to get drafted in the second, but I also think that there is going to be there's going to be other receivers that go, I think, in this same range. But I think because he's from Alabama, because he had some hype coming into the season, He wasn't as good as Jamison Williams, but I think the full package of John Mechie will make him somebody that if he actually comes back, even if he comes back in the second half of the year and produces, and he's in a decent spot to produce, I think, with Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a player some people will seek out. You know what I mean? Like he's somebody that people will go after, and I think that's what I'm looking for in this range. I tweeted out earlier, and actually I'll wait till we get to a player when that player comes off the board. But I think John Mechie will give you a sell window. I'm not sitting here saying I think he's going to be a top 36 wide receiver, but I think his profile says that if he's actually good, that someone will want to buy him. So I'll just take him, 204.
Yeah, no, I like that. He feels like a nice, safe bunt single.
Well, that's what I want in drafts. Bunt singles.
So I can't fault you there. Yeah, since we're already in this range, I'm still not going quarterback. I don't care. Matter of fact, I've just taken them off my list altogether. It's going to be a while before we draft one of those fellas. I'm going to go with, well, there's a reason I was asking if this is tight end premium, right?
I mean, it's tight end premium. It's start 1.5. I think that's what probably 80% of people play in. Other people aren't playing in any premium, and other people playing in like crazy ass 2 tight end, 2 PPR leagues. So we'll say 1.5, start 1.
I like Trey McBride here. I'm going to take Trey McBride. Look, he's the tight end one of the class, right? And it's funny, we talk about all the time, like, you know, for tight ends, you really need to fade the landing spot, right? Like, you should not be expecting year one production. So he ends up in Arizona, and everybody goes, "Oh God, he's buried behind Zach Ertz." Look, we have this talk every year, people. Zach Ertz is probably going to be there 1-2 years, and then in a couple of years, Trey McBride will be ready to take over. Best tight end in the class. Going to go with him because I'm not drafting another Colt here.
Okay. When I originally put together my tiers after day 2, I had Trey McBride going right at this spot. But when you think about it, in a 1.5 start 1, someone actually, I'm going to put this up there. I'm not normally going to do comments on this until we're done, but Dan said FFPC 1.5. See, listen, here's the issue. In FFPC, I don't want to draft rookie tight ends. Since you have to cut down so slim, the odds that Trey McBride is a guy you hold on your roster compared to what is in rookie drafts every year. I mean, anyone that's played in FFPC leagues, you go into the rookie draft every year and it's like, oh, wow, Adam Troutman got cut. You know, oh, Gerald Everett got cut. It's like those type of players are in the waiver wire. They're in the rookie draft every year. So it's like, why do you want to draft rookie tight ends? I mean, listen, if you have a like breakout season, you know what I mean, and you smash as a rookie, then clearly you're worth holding. But when you're in really shallow leagues and you're just, maybe you flash a little bit. If you have like a Cole Kmet rookie season, that's a cut in FFPC, unless you have a bad roster. You know what I mean?
Luckily, we're not drafting in an FFPC format.
I understand, but the principle is the same. If it's 25 roster spots, I could argue it's the same thing.
If I have, well, I'm guessing I have a taxi squad if I play on MFL or sleeper. If it's FFPC, no, I'd never make this trick. I'd never make this pick, and I probably wouldn't draft some of these wide receivers that I'm going to end up drafting either.
I guess I've just been burned so many times by the start 1.5 premium where the tight ends just kind of level off for the first couple of years. You never want to buy them at their cost, right? Because if someone drafts, let's just say Pat Freiermuth, and he had a good rookie season relative to what you would expect for a rookie. He had like a top 10% type season that you would want. The problem is once you have a guy that has a rookie season like that, let's say Pat Freiermuth goes out next year and does no better as a second-year tight end. What's going to happen to his value? Definitely. It's going to drop because people are going to go, well, dude, if he didn't get better, he's gotten worse and he's worth less. And those players, when that happens, that's a traditional trajectory for a tight end. Look at Dallas Goedert. His value's been up and down, but it was valued fairly highly from the get-go, but he's always been available. You could always probably get Dallas Goedert for like a future first if you wanted, you know what I mean? For the last 3 or 4 years, you could go buy him for a future first at any point. If you felt, hey, this dude is great, he's going to be the next whatever, elite tight end, you could always get him. And that's what I feel like the best case scenario is with Trey McBride. So that's it. 206, I'm going to snipe you. I'm going to take David Bell. I think, he was a late 3rd round pick. I don't love that. But when we're dipping into receivers and I'm just looking at like late round 2 into late round 3 is all the same, I'll buy the quote unquote David Bell analytical profile, along with the Deshaun Watson landing spot, along with the maybe there's some availability in Cleveland for him to play right away. So I think there's a little bit of squinting I can do on all three factors and just pick David Bell 206. So locking it in. And he's a guy that if he hits right away, if he looks good early, I know I will be able to sell him to somebody like Shane, who will say, look, he was underdrafted. He is the next Keenan Allen.
I'll probably call him the next Michael Thomas, just to annoy people more.
Okay, sure.
So that's what I'll go with. But yeah, look, there's guys like me that loved his college production profile. Well, everyone loved his college production profile. And we're just looking for an excuse to overlook the fact that he runs like a dad, that he runs like Zach Ertz. If we can start getting some production out of him, we're going to overlook it immediately. And yeah, I'll flip an early pick, not an early pick, but I'll probably flip a second rounder plus to you.
So let me interject real quick before you pick. What was Zach Ertz's 40 time? Can you remember?
4:12.77.
No, 4:12 would be fast.
No, 4:12 would be really fast. So let's go with 5.7. Now I'm going to guess. Hold on. Let me guess.
5.7 is like.
Let me guess for real.
Fat punter.
Zach Ertz was actually pretty athletic-ish coming out of school, so I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him a 4.69.
No, actually, you have to remember. I mean, come on, you're a Patreon subscriber of Dynasty and Chill, and I've said Zach Ertz is outside of my threshold, so he did not hit the 4.740. He was 4.76. But you're right. He was more athletic then than he seems today, but that's because he's been in the league for 8 years. So.
Yeah. That when we talk about Zach Ertz now, it's definitely not even remotely close to the dude that came out of college.
Right.
Which is funny because as soon as he started in the pros, he turned into that guy. But whatever. All right, let's. I mean, one of us is going to have to bite the bullet at some point, right? And it might as well be me because I
don't know what bullet you're talking about biting, but I'm good. I don't plan to bite any bullets here.
I like riling the people up.
Okay.
I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to go with. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I am. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with. Nope. I still couldn't do it. I'm going with Tyquan Thornton. I know his raw stats suck. But if you look at them relatively, he's not bad. He's a burner, right? I know New England has a very low, what's the word I'm looking for? Hit rate on drafting wide receivers. But I'm going to go speed. He's not 26 yet, right?
Well, let's see. So he's not an early declare. He never had more than 800 yards in a season. He was reached on, projected. I think he was projected to go in the late 4th, early 5th.
Yeah.
He got drafted by the Patriots. He went to Baylor.
Bill,
Everything's negative about him, but the fact that he ran a 4.28, that's it.
Every red flag you could possibly encounter, he's actually picked up on the way to the draft. And you know what? That's fine. I'm going to shoot high.
And this is why when I have a late second, I don't necessarily trade up to get my guy because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some picks where I'm just pumping my fist when they go off the board, because I'm like, that guy wasn't even on my board to begin with.
So we talked about this in probably each of our Patriot chats. I did not like, or I should say, when we get to the point of like 111, we're already starting to create your own adventure stories. So at this point in the draft, I'm already just doing whatever, to be quite honest with you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take Wan'Dale Robinson, and I've been very critical of Wan'Dale Robinson, but I've been critical of him today on Twitter, going like, you know what, I really don't want to draft this guy. But when I see Tyquan Thornton go off the board, I feel a lot better about taking Wan'Dale Robinson, only because he has everything going for him. He got better draft capital. I think a pretty good landing spot. I posted earlier that there's only been, or I did a filter of just players that were 5'8" and under and 180 pounds and under, and the targets they've received. And there was only like 5 that have ever had more than 100 targets. And most of those were just Cole Beasley. There was like 2 or 3 Cole Beasley seasons on there. Taylor Gabriel was another one that's hit, 80 plus targets a couple times. But the comp list, as you can imagine, was very uninspiring, right? But your boy Jacob Sanderson chimed in, and a few others kind of said, you know what, at the price where Wan'Dale is going, he's not a terrible bet. And it's interesting that 4 of the 12 guys that had over 90 targets on that list, they were Brian Daboll receivers. So I'm kind of wondering, the more that I've listened to some NFL stuff today, I'm kind of wondering if this was like a concession pick to let Brian Daboll get the guy that he wanted that fit this prototype, right? So I'm going to take him. It sucks because I love Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, I went to Kentucky, so like I'm a huge Wan'Dale Robinson fan, but I'm also like a good bet person too. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to make bad bets in Dynasty. I don't care about the players. I'm in so many leagues. I just don't want to make bad bets. But I did tweet earlier that also if he had Christian Kirk's career at the 206 and you had to spend that pick, would that be worth it? And the overwhelming majority was that yes, that would be a good pick. So Wan'Dale Robinson, 208, your turn.
Look, that's awesome. I love your reasoning. You're so optimistic that things are going to turn out well. Like you're well reasoned. I'm sitting over here going, second round picks generally don't have a good chance of hitting anyway, and I don't see a lot of these guys hitting. What really hurts me here is I like the running backs, but they're all the same dude. A bunch of them are going to be available. I'm just going to go ahead and do the thing that I don't want to do, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for the people. I'm going to take a quarterback.
Okay.
And it's going to be Malik Willis, and I'm going to let him sit on my taxi squad for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get this. I don't know if you get this too, but I get this bias sometimes where I look back at past drafts and some of the mistakes that I've made or some of the mistakes that I didn't capitalize on. And I just remember, like, I actually had a lot of Jalen Hurts in his rookie year, but you were getting him at like the end of the second, early third. But all it took is for him to be given a chance. You know what I mean? And he initially got, what was it, a 4-game sample size in his rookie year? That's it.
Yep.
But as soon as that happened, given his fantasy upside, you were able to trade him. Now, you weren't able to just flip him automatically for a first. You know what I mean? It wasn't like guaranteed you were going to be able to get that, but you could sell him for a profit compared to what you're picking him at. So I think, as much as we want to just say, ignore the quarterbacks, wipe them off the board, they're statistically bad bets to draft them at all. You have to look also like if this were to happen, there's a chance that I'm going to be able to sell at 20% more than what I just had. So I think that's the justification for taking Willis. I can't argue with it.
Here, and I'll even say this. Look, if someone wanted to draft every one of those quarterbacks, Willis, Corral, and Jesus Christ, I'm getting old. Willis and Corral and
Ritter.
All right, maybe not Ritter. Yeah, even Ritter. If you wanted to draft Willis, Corral, and Ritter in the top of the second round, I still wouldn't even be mad at you. Because what you're giving up is probably at best wide receiver 3. You're praying for a wide receiver 3 season from one of these guys or a running back that you're going to get 4 starts from. So it's not like the opportunity cost is a lot when you're going for a quarterback. So I wouldn't criticize anyone taking quarterbacks early second.
Well, and I think this is the range where, as much as you say, like, I don't want to take these guys before the third round. I mean, think about this. If we're in the season, right? So let's say we're in the middle of the season. It's a 14-team Superflex. This actually happened in a league you and I were in. 14-team Superflex, right? I have Kyler Murray. He gets hurt. You're holding Colt McCoy. What's his cost in the season? Kyler's out for 3 games. I want Colt McCoy from you. He's on the back end of your roster. He's your QB4. What do you charge me to get him? Now, you're more pragmatic than many. Many are going, give me a first. They're complete assholes, and they won't trade him to the team that needs him, right? I get that. Other people would charge a second. They would say, you know what, you're going to pay a premium. Otherwise, I'm just going to hold him on my roster. Maybe I'll be a dick and cut him so that you can't pick him up. I've done that too before, where I know I'm not going to play him, but you won't give me what I want. So I'll either give him to somebody else or I'll just cut him, right before the game starts so you can't pick him up. But truthfully, I mean, you would sell a guy like Colt McCoy for a third, even if you knew he was going to start for 2 games, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that before in many leagues. I mean, I press hard for that second because we know it's 3 games, and that's probably the best case scenario.
But if I call your bluff and go, nope, not a third, not a second, you'll probably accept a third because nobody else is even trading for him. You know what I mean? So, with that said, if you get 2 starts out of Desmond Ritter next year, isn't that almost the same as a third? You know what I mean? During the season. But there's so much more that could be milked in. Maybe he gets 6 starts. Maybe he gets 8 starts. Forget about whether he's the future starter. If you're getting him at like the 210, 211, 212, that's a little bit less or more than what the third would be during the season. But I'm not drafting him. I don't care if he's the future starter in Atlanta, because if you just project how this is going to happen, say Desmond Ridder takes over in week 10, the Falcons are like 1-8, and they're like, well, let's just give him a shot, right? That's probably not going to preclude them from looking at quarterbacks next year. If anything, if they're 1-8, it's almost going to hurt his value because everyone knows they're going to be looking at a quarterback next year, right?
Right.
But you might get 6 starts, and that is almost worth what you would pay during the season in a lot of leagues for a backup that's just giving you spot starts. So I do agree, as much as I say I don't want these quarterbacks, 208 through 212, I think this is the range where you just take them, but just adjust your expectations. I don't get into the debate whether he's the future starter. The NFL's already told us that that's what it is. So I think you kind of just have to look at it and say it's worth a little bit more than that third you'd pay during the season. So with all that said, I will take Desmond Ridder at 210.
All right. Okay, I cannot argue with it. I like Desmond Ridder at 210. We're flipping coins at that spot anyway, right? Between the quarterbacks, I should say. If I could find Ridder on here, he's down a little bit. Oh, he's a second quarterback off the board. Good for him. I mean, look, if you couch it in that way, you just got the QB2 of the class at 210. That's good work. You know what I mean? Just don't mention where he was actually drafted in the NFL draft. That's all. Boo. Yeah. I'm just going to repeat everything you just said and then do that with Matt Corral at 211. Same thing. In the range of outcomes with quarterbacks ahead of him, can I see him being forced to play because Sam Darnold is so bad at football? Yes, I can. Is he going to be good? Hell if I know, but the NFL doesn't think he will. Obviously, he would have been picked before that. But we're going 210. Just get me some starts. Let me trade him away, and I'll be fine with that.
Well, and just to piggyback on what you just said, you said try to trade him away. I'm not sure if dynasty players are. How do I say this tactfully? I'm not sure dynasty players are as gullible as they were a couple years ago, to where I think a lot of people will be able to see through the situation and then say that, they're not going to believe that somebody like Corral or Ridder, if they take over midseason, are going to be the starter in the future. You know what I mean? I don't think you're going to get many people that are like, I believe he's the future. I'm going to go ahead and trade you a 2024 first.
No, but
you know what I mean?
one thing we do, and we still continue to do this, and I do it too, is we stick to our priors, right? So if you liked Matt Corral before the draft, you're going to tell yourself a story of why the third round, obviously not a great happening, but you're going to figure out a way to tell yourself, well, it's a good landing spot. If he just gets a shot, he can't be worse than Sam Darnold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I definitely don't think that the dynasty community is particularly gullible anymore. It's just, I do think one of the things we do, and not just the community, me specifically too, is we do latch on to our priors and kind of hold on to those and kind of look for reasons for those that to be true.
Yeah, and I think we understand, at least dynasty players as a whole, I think understand the way the NFL is approaching quarterback position a little bit more now, where they're not as gullible to buy into guys that are just temporary starters. Some of them squeeze through the cracks. Like you have Davis Mills. I would have never bet that he would have gotten to this point and he'd still be the pretty much stone cold lock starter for Houston going into next year, but it appears to be that that's the case. But I would have bet against it in most cases. You know what I mean? You give me 10 situations like that, and I would say 1 or 2 out of 10, you end up with a guy that might be worth like a late 22 first. But I think if you paid like the 112 for Davis Mills right now, I don't think that's insane. But if you would have done that 4 months ago, I would have said that's probably not a great bet to make 4 months ago.
Oh, so, I was in a league. I am in a league. Someone traded the 110 for Davis Mills 2 months ago, and I laughed at them and I called them names. And now I look at it and I go, actually, not that bad. Good for you. Good for you.
All right, so 212. This is kind of where it gets into fun range for the running backs. And I love this part of the draft because I think this is where you can kind of, especially if you have a lot of picks in this range, you can really just kind of pick your guys, you know what I mean, and get a hodgepodge of different ones. So I'll just take, and I think it's extremely close for 3 players here. So I'll just take Dameon Pierce 212. Just simply, I think he got the best landing spot of the 3 just for him to start right away or to get carries right away. But that doesn't mean I think, I'm not sitting here and projecting a 4th-round running back to be like the next starter for a team. You know what I mean? But I think there's a chance like week 1, he's getting touches right away. So I'll Dameon Pierce 212.
Yeah, I like Dameon Pierce a lot. That'd be my choice there too. I also want to go running back. Unfortunately, New England drafted every one of the running backs that we liked before the draft, really putting a really putting a kibosh on my plans here.
You pivoted to a totally different word.
Well, the word wasn't working, so sometimes you just got to pivot to a new word. Geez, I'm just going to go with the guy that's kind of a metric freak and would have been a lot higher if not for multiple injuries throughout his life, and go with Zamir White. He's on a team where I like Josh Jacobs, but they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which whatever. But there's enough of a reason to think that Zamir White could get some run there. The backups behind Josh Jacobs aren't particularly good at football. So let's get Zeus back there, get him some goal line carries, let him get some touchdowns, and maybe I'll be feeling good about this.
Yeah, he was in this tier of 3 running backs that I think are going to go right in this range, maybe a little bit earlier, depending on the preference on the quarterback. So I can't argue with the pick. I am surprised you took him over Isaiah Spiller, who went 1 pick after him in the NFL draft. And I think you're kind of looking at a similar situation. I think both teams have angles to where they may look at an expiration date with their running back within the next 1 or 2 years. So I know you said Jacobs, they didn't pick up their 5th-year option. That doesn't necessarily mean he's not coming back. No. But I think it means we're not going to commit to him the money that it would take for the 5th-year option right now, given his injury history and given next year's running back class. It makes no sense to pay a running back right now, especially when you plan to draft one, which they did. And then especially with next year's running back class, where the 2nd-round running back next year, there could be 4 or 5 running backs next year that go in the 2nd that are better than Josh Jacobs. So it makes sense the Raiders did that. And I think they just took a free shot at Zamir White to take, a shot to see if they maybe don't need to draft another one as aggressively next year. But I'll go with Spiller. Same thing. The Chargers have tried the last couple of years to find a complement to Austin Eckler. And I'm just surprised you didn't go with Spiller. You said we stick to our priors, and you liked him. So I'm surprised you didn't take him over White.
He was definitely in the thought process, and specifically for that last reason you mentioned, the Chargers have repeatedly just tried to put someone in there to be that complement to Eckler. They're like, we want to give someone 10 to 12 touches, and Josh Jackson, whatever his name is, I don't even care anymore, was like, I appreciate the offer, but no, I'm not good at football. I don't want to do that. And then the other dude they had there too, also very bad. So there's definitely, I could see him with a role there, 10 to 12, if he can actually be decent there, when maybe he can be.
Yeah, so just to recap, and then I'll let you pick your 303. We had James Cook. We're starting at the 201. James Cook, Rachaad White, Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Trey McBride, David Bell, Tyquan Thornton, Rondale Robinson, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Dameon Pierce. 301, 302, Zamir White, Isaiah Spiller at 302. Shane, you're up, 303.
I don't want to. No, I don't have a choice. All right. Oh, okay. Wow. Jeez. It's really heartbreaking here. Definitely not going to be Velus Jones.
I'm surprised you didn't want to double down on the absolutely shitty profiles and double down on Tyquan Thornton and take Velus Jones.
Old. Difference is he's old. Jesus.
But dude, you realize he could smash on the Bears, Shane.
I really hate New England. I need to put that out there because New England took like 5 of the running backs that I like in this class. And
take one.
They're just going to let them battle to the death. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it. No, you're not going to make me do it. Not in the 3rd round. In the 4th round, I would start doing it.
We forgot to say there was a 45-second timer, and Shane's pick has been skipped. So I'll go with the 303.
Fine, I'm taking Jalen Tolbert. I'm going back to the wide receiver.
That's what I would have taken.
303. like I said, I like the running backs. Unfortunately, all the running backs I like are on the same exact roster right at this moment.
Yeah, no, that's who I would have taken. I mean, at this point, I don't want to compare him to Michael Gallup, but if you just look at their profiles, I mean, he's younger than Michael Gallup, but neither one of them had elite college profiles. Neither one of them were early declare players. Both went in the third round. Both played in non-Power 5 schools. So I mean, you could maybe, I don't want to say Dallas is just a simpleton, but they might have looked at Jalen Tolbert and said, you know what, we might find another Michael Gallup. So I can't argue, but that's who I would have taken. You actually sniped me.
Good.
So I'm going to use my full clock. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to use my full clock. I am going to just follow the draft capital. I'll take Brian Robinson.
I like it.
I've talked all year about I want as many of these third round picks and fourth round picks just for bodies, just for backup bodies. I like Antonio Gibson. I don't think Brian Robinson necessarily. I mean, what did I say on Twitter all offseason? Your favorite team is probably going to draft a running back behind the favorite dynasty running back that you already have. But that doesn't mean like you should just downgrade that running back. And just because teams didn't draft a running back, don't raise that running back way up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we talked about it, how few running backs actually play like 65, 70% of the snaps. It's very little. So I think Brian Robinson is the perfect injury away. If he can give you 2 or 3 games because of an injury, I don't care if he catches any passes. If he can catch 1 or 2 passes in a game, I think could be one of the premier touchdown handcuffs. So I'll just take him. And it feels gross, but I'll just take him. 304. He's a backup running back. You know he's going to make the roster, and you know he can play if he gets in there.
Yeah, so we're definitely at the point of the draft where we're just picking people we like, right? I'm going Pierre Strong Jr. 4th round running back, probably not a really good outlook. He's going to a team, though, that does rotate running backs and will stick with the hot hand. So, apparently they're moving on from Damian Harris. So maybe for 1 year, he'll be the complement to Ramondre Stevenson. And then we'll go through this again next year when the Patriots draft another running back in the 4th round, and the 6th again too as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll go with Pierre here. Hope to get a couple of games out of him. That's all I can really hope for. And he's got a fun profile too, right? He's got he was fun leading up to the draft. So if he does anything, I know people get a little bit excited, just like they did with Ramondre Stevenson last year.
Yeah, leave it up to the Patriots to take 2 of the more fun profiles in the draft and take both of them, right? Take both the players. All right, I'll go for the same reason I took Brian Robinson. I'll take Tyler Algier just for the same. I know he's a 5th round pick. I kind of hate going down into the 5th round draft capital wise, just because there's some other guys that have been taken in the 3rd and 4th that you could still take. But again, he's one of those guys where if I can just get, again, I'll ask you the question, Shane. During the season, if you're buying a spot start or 2 at running back, what's the cost? How many trades did we do last year? No, come on. How many trades did you and I do last year where we traded back and forth running backs? Shane, I need Mark Ingram for a week. What do you want for him? I'll take a 3rd,
Oh, yeah.
I know what you'd like to get. You'd like to get 2 firsts for every player. But
I'm going to be pushing for a 2nd on any of these players. But will I take a 3rd? Most likely. But
I know you cave so easily. Shane, I'm not giving you a 2nd. How about a 3rd? Okay.
Listen, we might have people watching the show that don't trade with me. You're really cramping my style here, man.
Okay. Well, I think the point is these running backs that get 1 or 2 spot starts during the year, they typically cost you a 3rd. So I'm just taking guys I think could give me a couple starts if they make the team and they're on the 53-man roster in a given week. So I'll take Tyler Algier. Now, I've already made this mistake in our Dynasty Trades in 5 draft, right? I loaded up on, what did I do? I loaded up on 2nd, 3rds, and 4ths, right? And I only took 9 rookie running backs in that draft. Now, it was before the NFL draft, but I now have a roster full of Zamir Whites, Brian Robinsons, Pierre Strongs, I have a whole roster full of those guys, which is fine. But I do think if I'm looking ahead, especially at the undrafted free agents this year, there's running backs that didn't get drafted that as long as they make a roster, I'll be interested in picking them up off waivers. I don't want to make like 8 third-round picks, I don't want to make if I have 8 picks between the 206 and the 412, I don't want to make all 8. Pick a couple, but try to get the future 3rd or future 4th in some of those trades because I think that's more flexible during the season where If I pick Tyler Algier and then he's a healthy scratch for the first 8 weeks, you're not trading me the spot start running back for Tyler Algier during the season. You know what I mean? You'd rather have a third. So I think just be careful on how many of these picks you make in a draft. And I've already messed that up in one league. Like I should have said, okay, I'm going to trade out this pick and give me a future third. Instead, I just picked every guy. And now I'm stuck with like 3 or 4 guys that didn't get drafted.
This draft is awesome if you have a taxi squad, deep taxi squads. If you got a taxi squad of like 10, just you could go ham and just get a bunch of guys. I'm about to go UDFA here because we're at the point of the draft. I'm not. You're not going to let me? Fine.
No.
Fine. It's going to happen. It's going to happen before this draft is over. I'm telling you that.
I can get that, but 306, 307, come on.
All right. What are we up? We're up to 30.
You're at 307. You're up.
We're at 305.
No, you took Pierre Strong already. I took Tyler Algier.
All right. Well, my numbers are messed up. So we're going to say 307. Oh, boy.
Velus Jones is still there.
He is still there. I'm gonna step away from the running backs again and go back to another position that I always draft poorly, wide receiver again, and I'm gonna take Greg Dulcich.
No, he's a tight end.
I just said that.
You said wide receiver.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant tight end. Tight end. Sorry. I thought I said I was moving back to tight end.
No, you said you're going back to receiver, but you're taking Greg Dulcich, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Minnesota, he's got decent round draft capital. He's in that he's in that zone that every tight end I ever fall in love with that just burns me, that gets drafted in the 3rd round. So I convince myself that he's going to be a future starter somewhere. But that said, he had elite production in college, right? So at least gives me something to lean my hat on. New coaching staff in Minnesota, so maybe they're not enamored with Irvin Smith.
And if they like analytics, then they will not like Irv Smith's RAP score. Greg Dulcich's RAP score is twice that of Irv Smith. Did you know that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm going back to the running back. Well, let's see. I am going to take the poor man's version of Brian Robinson Jr., and I'm going to take Hassan Haskins for the same reason. I think 1 or 2 starts. Tennessee Titans, that could be a guy that can get you a touchdown. So I'm just going to grab a potential start or 2 in rookie year and just take Hassan Haskins, 308. You're up, 309.
At allegedly 308. At 309, and I'm pretty sure we skipped a pick here. I'm still sure of that. I'm taking Game of Thrones Tyrion Davis Price just because of the San Francisco narrative. Literally, that's the only reason. Raheem Mostert isn't there anymore, right? So why not? They're definitely going to. They rotate, carries. They do give the ball to Trey Sermon's gone, right? Trey Sermon's gone. We can move.
I mean, he's there.
He's gone. He's gone in spirit. They've already decided that he lasted 1 year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Tyrion, and he's going to end Trey Sermon.
You sure about that? Trey Sermon was your guy last year, so you're already out?
He was, because you know why? Because his coach was out after the first NFL game. And then after the season, when given time to think about it, he looked at his draft board and said, you know what we need? A 3rd round running back. So, yeah, I'm out on Sermon.
So Eric just pointed out in the chat that you drafted wide receiver Greg Dulcich on the Vikings when he's actually tight end Greg Dulcich on the Broncos.
But I bet
you're using my sheet that had the mislabeled players from 2 days ago, right?
Yeah, why didn't you fix that?
Because I had a bunch of mistakes on there that I had to fix later. It's right on my sheet that I'm looking at in front of me, but I didn't change it on yours. Well, that just shows where you're at with Greg Dulcich. Would you really take him if you knew he's on Denver now?
I'm not an Alberto guy. I'm not
really.
Look, I know everybody's in love with Alberto since he's going to be the tight end 1 now that Noah Fant's gone, without a doubt. But I'll believe it when I say it.
Boom! There it is. The reminder. I don't think. Let me ask you this: do you look at rookie tight ends and really care about their landing spot? Like, do you even evaluate the current tight end room and even care what a rookie lands in? You know what I mean?
Like I said, when I drafted McBride, right? It literally doesn't matter to me where they land, who's in front of them. Draft capital is obviously more important. I don't care who's in front of them because it's tight end. If you're expecting year 1 production, you're insane. We barely get that from elite tight ends. You know what I mean? Let alone guys that were drafted in the 3rd round of our rookie drafts.
Fair enough. Well, I'll go continue with the running backs. I'll take Jerome Ford at 310. Kind of similar to the other guys we've talked about. 5th-round capital. We'll see what happens with Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson. I think he's probably a year away from potentially being the backup there, but I I don't see how he doesn't make the roster this year because I think that's going to be a team that probably prioritizes keeping 4 running backs if they do end up keeping Dearness Johnson. So I think we'll just go with Jerome Ford 310. Same process.
Like Jerome Ford, really didn't like his landing spot, but again, like you said, I'm sure there's going to be room for him to do something. Oh boy, just it keeps getting worse and worse. I feel really bad about all this.
Well, let's pause real quick because I know like the players are really uninspiring, but talk through like you're at this point in the draft. What are you thinking when you're making a pick here? Like you're not obviously looking at the player going, this guy's going to start for me or this guy's ever going to play for me. What are you thinking in terms of like if you would trade, if you would shop the pick, like from a roster construction standpoint or like a process standpoint? What are you thinking before you make this pick? Instead of just, hey, let me take a stab at a random player. Like, there's got to be other things that are going through your mind before you hit draft. Like what kind of things are you trying to do with these picks?
Well, I mean, before we even would have started in the 3rd round, I would have been trying to get out and just kick the can down the road, to be quite honest with you.
So 301, are you trading for a future 3rd?
301, no, I have my cutoffs, right? So anything 304 or higher, I'm probably just going to make the pick.
But that's arbitrary. That could be based on what players are there. So I mean, if there's a player you really want to draft, you're not going to do the trade, right?
No, not based on that at all. That's my my cutoff in my brain, like regardless of the players.
So you don't care who's on the board. If you would take a future 3rd, if it's 306,
right?
Okay.
Because quite honestly, I don't expect any of these guys to ever hit. What I really want from a 3rd round draft pick is for me to use it in a trade. And the fact that I'm making picks in the 3rd round means I failed at that. So let me try to kick the can to the next year so that I at least have that 3rd in my arsenal so that I can trade it to you or someone else for, a spot start at running back.
So you're saying the goal is to really never make a pick past the 304 for you?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, honestly, my personal cutoff is I don't want to ever make a pick after like 210. Now obviously
104
103, that's it. Now, but after the 2nd round, I generally don't even want to make the picks. I will obviously, and there'll be guys that I'm like, oh, I really like him, but again, and it's relative. I really like him compared to where I'm getting him.
Well, there's 11 tight asses in your league, and they didn't take any of your trades, so you have to pick at the 311. So who are you taking?
No one is trading. Now, so this is where I'll just go, whatever. He's got draft capital, right? Yep, I'm going to do it. It's going to be Velus Jones Jr. Yeah.
You doubled it up.
I did it. Look,
you got the 2 biggest sleepers in the draft, Velus Jones and Tyquan Thornton.
Look, nothing feels good about it. Betting on draft capital at all, just getting him on the field and letting him make a play or two, and then someone is going to think that he's going to be good. At least with the Bears, he'll have opportunity for targets, right? Even though he's more of a gadget player, but he'll definitely have a opportunity for targets since their wide receiver 2 is Byron Pringle.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going back to the running back just because that's what I've been dreaming about this all year, getting to make all these 3rd and 4th round running backs. So I'll just take Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler on the Vikings, 5th round pick. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and say, oh, Madison's there and whatnot. But, I think there's a chance they draft him to be the Madison replacement or the Dalvin Cook replacement. Who knows? Probably not either one, but that's a guy that I like the offense and I like the profile. So I'll just take him 312.
I can't argue with that. I like it too.
4th round.
Oh man,
We're going to go through the 4th. We'll do it quick, and then we'll take some questions before we finish up. We got 16 minutes left in the show.
Really proud of us for pushing through this. I just want to say that and really appreciate everyone watching us do this. I don't like anyone. I think that goes without saying. But you know what? Since we're just picking dudes that we kind of liked at one point or another, right? I'm going to go Kyron Williams. I'm going to go Kyron.
Ooh.
Yeah, look, the Rams don't. Hopefully, he is on the Rams, right? Don't seem to like Darrell Henderson Jr. just for whatever reason. I guess mostly because he's hurt all the time. Williams can at least block, and he's a good receiver. which are skills that we like, right? So I'll go with Kyron. And it's crazy because he was a guy that I was looking at in the second rounds before the combine. And then, he ran really slow and was really light. But I'll take Williams here.
Crimson Wazoo, we took Wandale Robinson at the 208. And then Flawsaurus. Shakir wasn't picked. He is going to be picked right here. I will take Khalil Shakir at 402. The reason he wasn't picked yet, I think he's going to go in most drafts, probably in the third. I don't like taking receivers in this range. I do not like taking receivers outside of the third round. So that's more of a process thing. I would prefer to take running backs, but that's also assuming that my rosters are already constructed the way that most of them are, where I'm literally hitting my threshold at receivers and then I'm stopping. I don't want to add potential roster cloggers to my roster. So I think he'll go ahead of this, but I'll just take him. So 402, Khalil Shakir. Shane, you're up.
So we come to the 403. I'm going to turn back again to a tight end. Yeah. And this one I'm going to go with Jelani Woods at 403.
Okay. Jelani Woods makes sense. Makes sense.
I'm going to assuming this is a different team than the one that drafted Alec Pierce.
So I am going to go back to our logic. I think he will go way ahead of this in most drafts, but I'll take Sam Howell. Just banking that if he ever gets an opportunity, 1 or 2 spot starts. That's a very, very low threshold to hit. The thing is, he's a 5th-round pick. No guarantee that he ever makes a start in the NFL. So, you have to kind of hope that maybe the team saw something and they knew he was going to fall in the draft once all the other quarterbacks went off the board. But, this is almost like I don't feel great about it because roster construction-wise, I'm sitting on how long if I don't have a taxi and I have less than 30 roster spots, the way I know my brain works, I mean, I'm literally going through, I just thought about it this morning. Like, would you cut Kellen Mond in league, Shane?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, no, I'm not. It's a serious question because there's a good chance he's going to be the backup, but I don't want to cut him. Like, I don't want him on my rosters. I literally try to throw him in any trade possible, but I don't want to just release him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the same time, like if I see in a league where, like I go in a league and like Case Keenum is a free agent, or like Tyrod Taylor is a free agent, or players like that. Like, why do I have Kellen Mond? You know what I mean? Like, at best, he's just a pickup if he ever got a spot start. And now he's on a team that, a regime that didn't even draft him. So it's like, if he's not the backup, then he should have been cut a long time ago. But we're stuck on the fact that he was a 3rd-round pick last year, and maybe he has a little upside if he starts. You know what I mean? But he's a roster clogger. He's a roster clogger. Sam Howell's going to be the same thing. Like, I'm going to always look at him on my roster and go, does anyone want him? Please. Does anyone want to give me a 3rd? Like, that's the kind of thing I'm going to look at. So I'm hesitant to take him, but I will.
No, and nobody's going to want him. And that's why it hurts. Because I had
405.
405. Look, I'm going UDFA. I don't care. At this point, it's not Max Borghi. It's going to be Kennedy Brooks, running back. Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, it's a homer pick, right? And yes, it's a great rushing offense. And last year they made Jordan Howard useful and Boston Scott useful. So if he can get any run whatsoever, I feel like he can give me a little help.
Okay. I'll go back to the tight ends. I really like Charlie Kolar.
Do you like him?
I do. Now, I don't want to pick. See, the thing is, I would be more aggressive on Charlie Kolar in a format that warranted to take tight ends. So if we're talking like a start 2, 1.75 premium, I would take Charlie Kolar probably in the first 2 rounds. But here, I don't really, again, I get, this is where I need to go through these exercises because I appreciate some of the comments too. Like, I don't want to draft day 3 receivers and I don't want to draft a bunch of extra tight ends in start 1, 1.5 premium. But from a value perspective, like, I like Charlie Kolar. I just want to pick my spots amongst my 52 leagues. I have probably 15 leagues that are 2 tight end. You know what I mean? I want to get as much Charlie Kolar in those leagues. And I want to literally avoid him in other spots. You know what I mean? So I want to diversify. I want to get some shares, but I just don't want to do it in certain formats. So this exercise, I let him fall and fall and fall. But other drafts, I'd probably be more aggressive on him. So 406, Charlie Kolar. To the Ravens.
I'm just going running backs at this point. I'm going to go Tyler Batty.
Okay.
No other reason. He's a Raven. Like we discussed the other day, they tend to not be too concerned with draft capital. If you can play, you're going to get on the field. Now, can he play? Well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. So Tyler Beatty, another Raven. So 408. Let's see what I want to do here. See, I hate that I sit here and look at these tight ends and I'm like, man, that might be the best player on the board. Okay, so I'm going to throw one out there. I don't like this player, but I think there's a chance that he's going to have opportunity, and there's a chance I might be able to flip him even before the season starts. So I'll just take Calvin Austin for the Steelers. 4th round pick to the Steelers, and that's the kind of player that maybe he makes a big play in preseason. Maybe I can get a 3rd for him. That's it. Nothing else. I hated his comps. I mean, he was so small. He was one of the ones that was 170 pounds and 5'8" and under, and literally his best comparable player in history is Taylor Gabriel. So not really excited, but
Taylor Gabriel gave you nothing. There's never a time that he was
his best season was 92 targets, and he was like wide receiver 40. So yeah, not exciting.
Well, look, what are we up to? 409.
Yep, 409.
This is the 409 that I'm making.
You are. We each have 2 picks.
Oh,
So we're going to hammer quick questions for 5 minutes.
All right, I'm going to go again. Landing spot not great, but it's running back. I was kind of into him before the draft and go with Kevin Harris. And
so
again,
let's say you end up with Pierre Strong in a league. Do you try to take Kevin Harris just in hope that you bank on the because one of them's going to miss. One of them's going to not make the roster most likely.
No, yeah,
so
I'm not.
You don't care about getting both or whatever like that.
No, I don't want both on the roster. On the same roster, these are 2 different teams in my brain. I worked that out. If this was the same roster, I would have purposely just moved away from him because I'm not betting I mean, it's 4th round, whatever, but I don't want to tie 2 roster spots up with one shot at a running back position.
So there for you, there's really there is no strategy behind you wanting to take both on the same roster then.
No, because I get that you're like, well, I might hit on one of them, right? Like one of these guys is probably going to make it. What's more likely is neither of these guys are going to make the roster and they're both going to be off and you're going to feel even worse about yourself.
Okay. All right. So I'm up at the 410. I hate taking tight ends in this range, but I'll take Jeremy Ruckert. A lot of people are high on him. His RAS score is right on the fringe. Actually, he doesn't have a complete RAS score, but I did see somebody that projected with some data that they've pulled from different places from Jeremy Ruckert's history because he didn't complete all the metrics needed to get a RAS score, but put him together, he's right on the fringe. So I'll just take him. He's a 4th round or 3rd round pick to the Jets, probably the best draft capital player that was left. So we'll just go there.
Yeah, draft capital, definitely. He was the best one still on the board. I'm going to stick with my running backs over everything and just go with Keontae Ingram. This is one of those I'm sticking to my priors. I love the kid as a Devy player. Clearly, it has not worked out due to the fact that he was drafted in the 6th round. But if you have to go to a roster, one where James Conner is the starting running back is not a bad one to go to because there's a shot you're going to get to play.
Yeah, he would have probably been the last running back that I would have taken. So now I'm probably now you're in these drafts too, where if you can't trade out of the pick, you do have to be very cognizant of your roster construction too. Like I can sit here and say probably the best player on the board, just from like a profile standpoint, what I look for would be like Daniel Bellinger. But again, like I've already taken a couple tight ends, and I know this isn't one roster, but like I don't necessarily want to make the last pick of my draft a tight end because then if there's guys that fall to waivers and I don't take, now I'm looking for roster spots, right? And like, who's the one I want to draw to pick up with a free roster spot? Probably like Daniel Bellinger. So like you kind of have to think about like you draft a guy, but then why don't you just pick the best player you're going to want to pick up off waivers, which is usually going to be a running back. The one thing with me is a lot of times the waivers don't run for a while after the draft. So like we could get to like August before the waiver run in your league. Some of the UDFAs and like 7th round running backs could be in a totally different spot. You might like them even better. You know what I mean? Or you might like them worse and you don't even want to draft them. So I think it's just, I want to wait on the running backs because I think that's much more straightforward. Oh, let's see. This is tough because there's like 8 players that I want and there's nobody that I want to actually draft. I'll just go with... All right, I'm going back to the UDFA well. And I am going to take Master Teague. That's it.
No. Just literally nothing else.
No, I mean, there's a lot of running backs. There's probably 15 running backs that didn't get drafted that I'm interested in, and I'm going to want to pick them all up.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the depth chart, going like, okay, is there a chance Master Teague makes the team? That's it. I think he's the other ones I would probably consider. I like Tyler Goodson, but he's in Green Bay, so I'm not sure if he's going to make the roster. I like Zonovan Knight, same thing. Bryant Kobach, Max Borghi. I know you like Max Borghi, but they have a couple running backs there. They have Devontae Price there as well.
Yeah,
I like Deion Jackson. I have Deion Jackson in like 15 leagues, so I'm like only one of those guys is probably going to make the roster. Yeah. So do you even want to draft up Devontae Price or Max Borghi? In August, I might. One of Deion Jackson, Max Borghi, Devontae Price might be in line to make the team, but you're not going to know who it is probably until preseason. So just kind of avoid that.
Looking at the UDFAs or even any of the other running backs that were drafted in this range, it's just looking at the roster and going, all right, well, how easy is this path? Is there a path? Max Borghi would have to actually physically assault other human beings above him to get playing time, which is why I would, probably want to add him to my roster. So 5th round draft, 5 rounds of rookie drafts are going to be fun.
Yeah, I would just pick up all the undrafted free agent running backs.
Yeah,
that's literally all I would draft. I would let other people take, Cade Otton and Chigozema Nwankwo, Isaiah Likely, Jake Ferguson. Let other people take all the day 3 tight ends, and I'll just worry about the rest. So
because I definitely. And look, here's the thing: at least when they're signing them as UDFAs, you do have a couple things you can look at. How much bonus did they give them? Did they give them any guaranteed money? How quickly did they sign them as a UDFA? And that tells you how much they like them. If they were a target. Obviously, it's not a great thing not getting drafted, but look, there's signs that the teams give us when we're looking at UDFAs.
All right, we're going to roll through the questions and then we'll finish this baby up. So I'm just going to throw this up there. I want your initial reactions, no context, anything. We'll keep it at 30 seconds. CeeDee Lamb, DeAndre Swift, or Tua for Jonathan Taylor, Garrett Wilson, and the 201. What side, Shane? Assuming it's Superflex because Tua's in there.
Yeah, JT side.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think I'd go to the other side. I think I can flip Tua for a 23 first, or at least add to him to get a 23 first.
I think
I can. The 201, we just went through the exercise. Insert James Cook into that pick instead.
Yeah.
So
that's fine.
All right, cool. Wish we were on both sides of that trade. We'd have a deal done. We're live on.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
All right, let me see what other questions we have in here that I can knock out pretty quickly. Here we go. Kevin says, drafting now, thinking about fading on Kamara, decent at running back. Would you trade DJ Moore? Trade for DJ Moore. So Kamara or DJ Moore. And he already has Dalvin, Chubb, Kamara, Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary. He needs to really shed some of that running back risk, don't you think?
Yeah, and I'm always going to probably – how old is Kamara? 27?
26. Pretty sure he turns 26. Either turns 26 or is 26.
He's at that age. I'd make that move. Although I would try to squeeze a little bit more out. I think I could get a little bit more than just DJ Moore for Kamara. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Just enough.
So what's the more? Would you take a 24 second?
Yes.
Okay. So something like 23 second, I think is too much to try to just get the deal done. But 24 second, usually people will throw those in. So I agree with you.
Oh, someone pointed out we missed Danny Gray.
No, we had Danny Gray. I just didn't draft Danny Gray.
Okay. All right.
He's there. I mean, he was there. He was San Francisco's 3rd round pick. And so I think just to mention, he will get drafted. There's a lot of guys we didn't take or we didn't take until too late that will get drafted earlier because simply someone will go through and they'll have no process and they will just go, oh, Danny Gray, 3rd round pick. I'll just take him. I mean, but from what I've listened to, he's going to be a special teams player. I don't know why they honestly took him in the 3rd round, but they did. So it was the very last pick of the 3rd round.
I don't want to say that's not a process. It's a process. It's not a process that you particularly like. You know what I mean? But look, we all do it. Like we look at Drake. There, you see, Derek says he's very good.
I mean, and
Well,
Eric's
pretty
an asshole, though. So, I mean,
well.
of course he's going to point out that he likes Danny Gray. So I'll let
Right.
Dan. I'm in about 15 leagues with Eric, so I'll let him have Danny Gray in
I'll
every
tell you
single
what.
one of them.
I'll admit to a mistake. I probably should have drafted Danny Gray over one of the 17 tight ends I drafted in this draft.
Okay. Yeah, I probably should have taken him over Master Teague, right, Eric? I think he'd probably agree with that. All right.
I would not take him over Keontae Ingram.
Last one. Dan, who posted a question earlier, says this: Michael Carter and a 23 third for a 23 second. Assume it's Superflex. He said he's in FFPC earlier, so I'm assuming maybe this is an FFPC trade, which to me, I'm taking Michael Carter if it's an FFPC trade, because honestly, in those drafts, there's hardly any difference between seconds and thirds. They usually struggle to make your roster anyway, because you got to cut down to, 16 players in the offseason. But if it's a league with a deep taxi or 30-man rosters, I'll take the second, because I think that's a lot more liquid to move versus a third is just what we talked about all draft, was like, I can just buy a couple starts with a third. But a second, I think, could legitimately buy you something or get thrown into a deal and get you something. So I'll take context matters. How about you?
Yeah, and this is it's so funny because I never liked Carter, but I still think he has some viability left in him. I don't know exactly what his role is going to be in New York, but I know at worst if Breece Hall goes down for any amount of time and he's a running back, so that's certainly in the realm of possibility that Michael Carter can step right in there and give me a couple week, whatever, of full on three down workloads.
Two more. Oh, wrong comment. Boy, Husker KDB or KB on both of our patron chats says James Cook or Jahan Dotson. Start 9, 2 wide receivers. Does running back mean a little bit more to you there, or are both like kind of outside of the starter range and a start 9 anyway? So you'd rather just have the first round pick. What's your thoughts?
Man, that's closer than I thought it would be initially looking at it, but I'm still going to lean Dotson, and yeah, I'm taking that first half of the first round draft capital. Technically, he's right on the median, but whatever.
But it's a good question, because in a start 9, you're not really looking at like Jahan Dotson. Your expectations for him are that he's never really a locked-in starter either. You know what I mean? If he is, then you really hit on that pick. But
well,
you may need running backs more in that type of format too.
Yeah, look, I'm going through the permutations in my head and trying to figure out which one I think is going to be who has a higher ceiling, and I guess it's Dotson. If you, it's close enough though that if you disagree and you think it's Cook, you think Cook's got the higher upside, go with Cook.
All right, last one. Everyone needs to know this question.
No,
we clearly will not take him in the 4th round. Will you pick him up off waivers, Shane?
No, because and this is a sad story. I don't think the kid should ever be playing in the NFL due to the health risks.
Okay. I've just crapped on him all the draft season, and the fact that he went undrafted, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to pick him at all. But then at the same time, I've seen the hive of supporters that he has out there. I mean, I've listened to a couple podcasts today, and you still have people talking about Justin Ross if he just gets a chance, he just gets a chance. So that alone makes me say, if I can get him on waivers or even at the 412, like maybe I should have taken Justin Ross, just simply because I know there's probably somebody in my league that likes him. That if he just even plays, if someone signs him and goes, we've reviewed his medicals and we're going to sign him, someone might give you like a 24 third. You know what I mean? Like just that alone might be worth picking him over UDFA running backs. Just a thought. Any objections?
No objections.
All right. Manic and Chill in the books, an hour and 3 minutes, just shy of an hour for. Shane is sorry that he fell asleep and we were late. It will never happen again until next show, and then it'll be one of us that gets delayed.
Can I tell you something? Hey, this is twice in the span of like 2 weeks we've done a show, so I think I needed a nap.
Dan, appreciate you. All the listeners, appreciate you from both of our patron chats. I saw a lot of them chime in from the DLF feed. Appreciate that, and maybe we'll catch you on another Manic and Chill sometime. Well, let's shoot to try to do one in mid-May, and we'll have some like real rookie draft trades and rookie draft examples to talk about. So give it like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we'll have some ADP, and that's fun.
Good stuff. And I think if you learned anything from this is that once you get to like the middle of the 3rd round, it's a lot of preference. And then people even pointed out in the in the comments of like where our process might have been different. So I'm always wanting to learn because I've only had a couple drafts. So I'm going to make some mistakes as we go and look back and go, man, I wish I would have done that after my 10th draft. I realized I should have done something different. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
and
appreciate the
definitely.
feedback and all the comments.
I've gotten through the first round in my rookie drafts. I've already blocked out like the ones we did before the NFL draft, which mean nothing now. Those don't count for current drafts though that are going on after the draft. I haven't made it past the second rounds yet, so it's going to get very interesting to see what it looks like when I have to actually pull the trigger.
Yep, for sure. Well, we'll try to do one in the next 2 weeks. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate DLF for the platform, and we'll sign off. Be chill.